The night it all fell apart, Elijah stood in the center of Sotheby and Legrand's private auction hall, a cathedral of wealth, wine, and well-shined shoes. He had just proven without doubt that the Andalusian Girl, a painting about to be sold for $19 million, was a forgery. The original was buried deep in the archives of Madrid. He had the documents, the brushstroke analysis, the chemical pigment breakdown. And for 12 seconds, the room fell dead silent as he presented it. Then came the voice. "How dare you accuse a donor?" It was Martin Legrand, the billionaire auction mogul. His smile never faded, but his voice cut like acid. "This isn't academia, Mr. Cole. This is legacy." The crowd murmured, eyes narrowed. Elijah was escorted out before the painting could be pulled. He wasn't fired, he was erased. Within a month, his name was blacklisted from every major auction house and museum from New York to London, his credentials under review, his housing fellowship revoked, his emails unanswered. At 23, Elijah Cole had committed the unpardonable sin in elite society, telling the truth. And for that, he lost everything. But he remembered the faces, the room, the lies. And 10 years later, after changing his name, building wealth from the outside, and watching quietly, he returned, not as a curator, not as a protester, but as a collector. His new name, Julian Carter. His new title, Private International Acquisitions Advisor. His invitation, Legrand's Centennial Auction Gala, celebrating 100 years of wealth, theft, and art washing. The same room, the same elites. But this time, Elijah wasn't there to fight. He was there to burn it all down from the inside. The invitation arrived in thick cream envelope stock, embossed in gold. Legrand Centennial Auction Gala. For select patrons only. Strict dress code. Paddle required. Elijah, now Julian Carter, ran his thumb across the seal. A decade ago, he would have been stopped at the marble steps. Now, he'd be walking through the grand archway with a private paddle number, a Swiss-accented assistant, and a portfolio worth $40 million. Artwork he had never once paid for, but acquired through calculated flips and anonymous holdings. That was the key, wasn't it? To beat the rich, he had to stop playing by their rules. He had to beat them as one of them. The gala took place at the Legrand estate in the Upper East Side, not the museum wing, the private one, the one with the security detail you never saw, and walls that hid more than art. Elijah arrived in a charcoal Armani suit, no tie, loafers like butter, clean fade, calm gaze. At his side, Ela, a British-Nigerian hacker turned identity specialist who once broke into Christie's cloud database for fun. She whispered, "You sure you want to see their faces again?" Elijah didn't blink. "I want them to see mime." Inside, it was as grotesquely opulent as ever. White truffle hors d'oeuvres, crystal flutes of blood-orange champagne. A Monet worth $120 million sat on an easel like a casual backdrop. And then, the auction hall. Same vaulted ceilings, same custom lighting, same hand-stitched leather chairs reserved for people who viewed countries the way others viewed chessboards. He took paddle number 42, sat in row 3, directly behind Charles Elgin, museum board chair, and diagonal to Simone Leroux, European heiress turned art philanthropist. Elijah smiled. All three had voted to have him blacklisted back in 2015. And now they clinked glasses, unaware that the man they exiled was holding a bomb in his pocket. The first item up for auction. La Morte Blanche by Etienne Giroux, estimated at $2.6 million. Bidding started. Hands lifted. Eyes flicked. Money danced. Paddle 42 went up without hesitation. He won it for $3.9 million. Gasps, whispers. Who was this new collector? That was the point. He was buying his way back into the center of their web. Over the next hour, he acquired 3 more lots. Each time he bid aggressively, smoothly, with surgical confidence. And each piece he chose had something in common. They were all stolen at some point, just like his reputation had been. Only he had proof. Years of it. Digitized, dated, verified by Ela and a team of quiet researchers who didn't ask questions, only pulled threads. And once tonight's items were sold, he'd release it all. Between lots, Elijah made eye contact with the man he'd waited 10 years to face, Martin Legrand. Still tall, still powerful, still smiling like a man who thought the world couldn't touch him. "Ah, Julian Carter," Legrand said, extending a hand. "You're causing quite the stir tonight." Elijah shook it, firm, even. "Only just arrived, Martin. I haven't even started." They made polite small talk. Wine, politics, the Paris Biennale. Then Legrand said something casual but cold. "I am reminded of someone. There was this kid once, Elijah Cole. Tried to embarrass us. It ended badly for him. Brilliant, but naive." Elijah leaned in slightly. "That's the thing about naive people. They tend to grow up and remember." It started with a whisper. A junior reporter from the Art Observer posted a thread at 7:01 a.m. titled, "Legrand Gala Linked to Stolen Art?" At 7:08 a.m., an anonymous Dropbox link appeared on the hashtag #ArtCrime subreddit, time-stamped and curated with forensic evidence, export documents, and side-by-side comparison images. By 7:12, the phrase "Forgerygate" was trending on X. At 7:17, Legrand's PR team went dark. In a townhouse uptown, Elijah sipped his espresso with quiet satisfaction. Isla sat across from him, scrolling through the chaos. "Christie's has frozen 3 sales. Interpol flagged 3 of the auction lots. And Legrand's foundation website just 404'd. She smirked. "You dropped the damn hammer." Elijah said nothing. He was watching the live stream from the Legrand Museum's board meeting, a hidden feed thanks to Isla. Inside, suits were pacing. Phones were buzzing. No one could speak above the noise. And at the center of it all sat Martin Legrand, jaw locked, face pale, holding the envelope Elijah had left him. "Do we know who Carter really is?" one board member asked. Martin didn't respond at first. Then finally, "Julian Carter is Elijah Cole." The room fell silent. He said it like it was a curse. But for Elijah, it was an incantation. A name reclaimed. A name they tried to bury beneath silence and humiliation. And now it rang out across their halls like thunder. At 9 a.m., the New York Times confirmed that multiple paintings sold at the Legrand Gala were flagged as fakes or restitutable stolen works. One traced back to a Jewish family collection from 1939. Another had been listed as destroyed in a fire in Marseille in 1972. But here it was, clean and framed, sold for millions, and all linked to Legrand's network. By noon, the elite were eating their own. Simone Leroux denied ever knowing the painting was illegal. Charles Elgin deleted his Twitter account. 2 assistant curators leaked internal memos showing that museum boards had been warned and chose to proceed anyway. Elijah watched it unfold with no pity. They hadn't cared when he lost everything. Why should he care when the curtain came down on their lies? Then came the email from Martin Legrand. Subject: "Come see me." Isla frowned. This could be a trap. I know, Elijah said, but it's the last move on the board. That night, he walked alone to the Legrand estate. No disguise, no false name. This time as himself. He was escorted through the now quiet auction room. No music, no laughter, no buyers, just the echo of downfall. Martin Legrand sat in the lounge with a half-finished scotch and a face full of years. "You feel proud?" he asked, voice like gravel. "You brought down an empire." Elijah didn't sit. "I didn't bring it down. I just showed the world what it already was." Legrand leaned forward. "You think this makes us equals? You're still not one of us." Elijah looked around at the empty decadence. "Exactly. That's why I won." Legrand tried one last card. "You've proven your point, but walk away now and I'll make sure your name gets reinstated. Museum boards will forgive, foundations will invite, you'll get your seat back." Elijah's eyes narrowed. "I don't want a seat at your table. I'm building my own." He dropped a folder on the coffee table. Inside, plans for a new art initiative, the Provenance Project. An open-access, community-led platform for verifying, exposing, and recovering stolen or forged art worldwide. "You spent decades laundering history. I'm going to spend the rest of mine restoring it." Then he turned, walked out of the estate that had once swallowed him whole, and left Martin Legrand in silence. That night, 60 Minutes ran a full segment titled "The Art World's Biggest Reckoning." The world called it a scandal. Elijah called it correction. 3 days after the gala leak, Elijah appeared on The Rachel Monroe Show, live across the U.S. Rachel leaned in, voice sharp and velvet smooth. "You exposed forgeries, laundered art, historical theft. But more than that, you exposed the elites behind it. What drives a man to burn the palace down?" Elijah paused, gaze steady. "Because the palace was built on stolen bricks. And every time someone like me told the truth, they threw us into the moat. I didn't burn it. I just lit a match and showed the world the gasoline." The interview went viral. Clips were turned into TikToks. College students made protest signs. Art historians began reevaluating half a century of confirmed acquisitions. And one phrase stuck: "Legacy is a lie." It was bold. It was dangerous. It was true. Because Elijah wasn't just targeting Legrand. He was targeting the entire ecosystem. The museums that turned blind eyes. The academics who were bought. The boardrooms filled with people who treated history like a commodity. And his new platform, the Provenance Project, was the scalpel. Within weeks, it had already flagged a Monet in Zurich acquired via Nazi-looted networks. A Basquiat lost from a Bronx gallery suddenly reappearing in a Beverly Hills vault. A tribal artifact smuggled into private possession during the Angolan Civil War. Each revelation was like a drumbeat. The system had always known, but now the public did too. And with that knowledge came fear, from the powerful. At a museum gala in Boston, A trustee asked his assistant, "What if we're next?" At a boardroom in Milan, an auctioneer whispered, "Get rid of anything with unknown origin." It was working, but not everyone was grateful. One morning, Elijah opened his email to find a message with no signature. Just a sentence. "What you're doing isn't justice, it's vengeance." He stared at it for a long time, then typed, "You're right. It's both. And it's overdue." He didn't send it. He saved it, printed it, framed it in his apartment as a reminder. Meanwhile, Martin Legrand was summoned to testify before an international art tribunal. He looked older now, thinner, less sure. They asked, "Did you knowingly sell forgeries or stolen works at your gala?" He responded, "I relied on my experts." They asked, "Did you blacklist Elijah Cole for exposing the Andalusian forgery 10 years ago?" He paused. Then, "Yes, I considered him a threat." And the room erupted, not because of guilt, but because of honesty. For the first time, he admitted it. They weren't protecting art, they were protecting power. That evening, Elijah hosted an event, but not in a penthouse, not in a museum, not in a private gallery. In a community art center in Harlem where he once interned. The guests? Young artists, teachers, underdog restorers, street photographers, elder curators, people who had never been given a paddle at any auction. He stood before them, spoke plainly. "They tried to bury us with lies. Now we're digging it all back up. Legacy was never built for us, but truth is." As the crowd applauded, Elijah looked to the back of the room. Isla was standing there, smiling, holding up her phone. A live feed from Geneva. The UN was debating a resolution on global cultural restitution, based on the data his platform exposed. History was changing, not in dusty books, but in real time. And it started with one man they tried to silence. The more Elijah exposed, the more others rose. Artists began asking questions. Collectors panicked. Museums scrambled to verify their entire inventories, terrified of becoming the next headline. And yet, some fought back, quietly, viciously. Private attorneys reached out to Elijah with cease and desist letters. Anonymous online trolls smeared his name. Even whispers began in boardrooms. Elijah Cole is trying to destroy the industry. He wants to devalue history itself. But Elijah knew the truth. History had already been devalued by those who priced it in blood and silence. He wasn't destroying it. He was reclaiming it. Then came the invite, the Marcus Bidding Gala. Private, unofficial, infamous. Held once every 5 years by the world's most secretive collectors. It was where the real deals were made. Pieces that should never exist, war relics, stolen manuscripts, black market treasures laundered through billionaires. No press, no photos, no record. Isla stared at the invitation. "You think it's a trap?" Elijah's eyes didn't leave the gold foil text. "No, it's a test." He arrived at the event in Monaco, dressed like myth. Custom silk suit, diamond cufflinks, eyes cold as stone. The ballroom was underground, lit in gold and shadow. Faces he recognized from leaked documents, faces from sanctions lists. And at the center, Juliette Marquis, the queen of invisible art dealings. She greeted him with a kiss on each cheek. Elijah Cole, or shall I say, the artist of collapse. Depends who's bidding, he said. The items tonight were beyond obscene. A Picasso once declared lost at sea. An Egyptian artifact missing since 1924. A journal belonging to a French resistance fighter, never archived. Every item had a story, a wound. Elijah didn't bid. He watched. Not the items, but the people. And when the final piece arrived, his chest tightened. Lot 73. The Andalusian Girl. Original copy. The real one. The painting that ruined him. Elijah raised his paddle. The room turned. 3 million, he said. A pause. Then another bidder. 3.5. 4, Elijah answered. Gasps. Whispers. Juliet Marquis's smile widened like a predator. Do I hear 4.5? Another hand. Elijah. 5. Silence. 5 seconds. Then, sold. To Mr. Cole. They escorted him to the back room, the painting wrapped in velvet, the deed signed. But as he took it in his hands, he pulled out a blade and cut it open. Gasps from the room. One woman screamed, because inside the canvas was a microfilm hidden by the forger 10 years ago. A secret authentication, time-stamped, dated, proving the painting's fraudulence and the cover-up by Legrand and several buyers. It had never been about the painting. It had always been about the evidence hidden within it. Elijah turned to the crowd. You built your empire on shadows, but shadows only exist when you block the light. I'm done blocking. Then he pulled a signal switch from his pocket. Files transmitted. To the press, to Interpol, to the world. By the time he returned to his hotel, the news had broken. World's most elite auction exposed in live leak. Original Andalusian proven forged, hidden evidence found in canvas. Whistleblower Elijah Cole strikes again. Marquis was silent, but her guests scattered, and the underground art world shattered. The next day, as dawn broke over the Riviera, Elijah watched from his balcony. In his hand, a photo of his younger self. Hopeful, naive, brilliant, ruined. And now, 6 months after the Marquise Gala, Elijah stood inside a gallery, but this time it belonged to him. Not in Midtown, not in Paris, in Harlem. Brick walls, exposed wood, skylight flooding the space with natural light. No velvet ropes, no security guards, just art. Real stories, real provenance, and one sign above the entrance. The Cole Archive, truth in brushstrokes. He never thought he'd open a gallery again, but it wasn't about profit now. It was about returning what was stolen. The first exhibition? The Exiled Pieces, a collection of once forged, hidden, or illegally acquired art, restored, traced, and repatriated. Each piece hung with a plaque. Artist, year, where it was taken, who tried to hide it, who brought it home. Crowds lined the sidewalk outside for blocks on opening day. Students, activists, survivors, former museum workers, young artists who had never seen their cultures honored in a place like this. They didn't come to admire, they came to reclaim. Inside, Elijah stood in front of the Andalusian Girl, the same painting that had once ended his career, now fully exposed, unframed, naked in its deception. Beside it, a small digital kiosk played the forensic breakdown, the fraud, the cover-up, the scandal. And a quote from Elijah. History doesn't belong to the loudest liars. It belongs to those who refuse to forget. The Provenance Project, now global, had verified 300-plus disputed works. Over 80 had already been returned to rightful families, nations, or foundations. What started as revenge had become restoration. Then came a visit he didn't expect. Martin Legrand, older, grayer, alone. No entourage, no guards. He walked through the gallery slowly, studying each piece. Elijah didn't stop him. Let him see. Let him feel it. They met eyes near the final exhibit. Martin Legrand spoke first. "You won." Elijah didn't respond, just waited. "Do you feel better?" "I feel right," Elijah said. A pause. "You ruined me," Martin said quietly, "but maybe I deserved it." Elijah leaned in. "You didn't ruin me. You revealed me, and then gave me something far more powerful than power." Legrand raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "A reason." And with that, Elijah turned away, letting the past leave with the man who built it. That night, Elijah walked the halls of his gallery alone, each painting a silent witness to a battle won. His phone buzzed. Text from Ela. UN just passed International Repatriation Treaty based on our data. He smiled. Another stroke, another line of justice. On the wall by the exit was a mural, spray paint and oil, modern and ancient. A collage of names, whistleblowers, artists, lost children, truth-tellers. And in the center, a canvas, torn, repaired, but never erased. A young girl stood staring at it, maybe 10 years old, wide eyes, tiny notepad, drawing her own version. Elijah knelt beside her. "What do you see?" She looked up serious. "I see someone fixing what they broke." "Who broke it?" he asked. She pointed to the gold silhouettes at the top of the mural. "Them." Then she pointed to the hands painted underneath. "But now we're fixing it." Elijah smiled, because that was the end game. Not revenge, not justice. Restoration, redemption, a legacy rewritten. Not for the elites, but for everyone they tried to erase.